In this bull, I go, dude, don't do this to these people. And the fucking stuntmen are some of the hardest dudes you will ever meet. Those dudes are not worried about broken bones. They break them all the time. They're not worried about shit. So they're not worried about themselves getting injured. They take precautions. You know, they're professional, but they're definitely not worried about these fuckers getting injured either. They don't want them to get injured, but they'll put them in danger. Yeah. And I was like, these are fucking bulls. And the stunt guy, he was hilarious. He always had a dip in his mouth, and he was on set so often that he stopped spitting his dip because he couldn't like carry around a cup, so he just started swallowing it. Yeah. So he swallows his dip. What kind of a man is just there swallowing dip for decades?
There's a lot of them.
That kind of dude.
Yeah.
And so he was like, don't worry, boo, they're stunt bulls. I go, they're stunt bulls. I go, does that bull know he's a stunt bull? I bet he thinks he's a fucking bull. I bet he has no idea what a stunt bull is. Yeah. And the stunt bull is like a less aggressive.
For sure. Yeah.
That thing was aggressive as fuck.
I call like the one I have, he would be like my bucket list bull, because like if somebody just wanted to get on a bull for the hell of it, like I would put him on this one black bull. We call him Trunk. He just jumps and kicks around there, and he's kind of predictable, and he's not mean at the end of it. And then we've got some other bulls that, you know, will get it on in the gate and then be mean and might try to kill you. But I imagine, I vaguely remember the show, and what I remember about it, it would be like something probably a notch or two above Trunk, like my bucket list type bull ride. Like if you were to get on a bull, I would put you on Trunk.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm so not interested in that.
Right.
They don't want me on there. I don't want to be on there. We got a relationship that way. We got a good agreement.
And normally I try to talk people out of it.
Good.
Like I got my whole program like revolves around like interns coming in. Like my Netflix show was those, like my interns learning how to rodeo, and and so I've got guys coming in that want to ride bulls, want to ride broncs, and I'll tell them like all the things. Like, listen, number one, you could die, or worse, you know, you could die from the neck down and not the neck up. You know,
right?
And I'll just be real with them. I'll have 3 or 4 of those conversations, and if they still want to do it, well, then I'll teach them. You know, because there are some precautions you can take to minimize risk, but there's always risk.
Yeah, you might get kicked.
Yep, stepped on.
You might get stomped. You get stomped by a bull, like, good Lord. Have you been stomped?
Oh, yeah.
What does that feel like?
I broke a lot of bones. Like this, I broke my sternum. Like, you know, getting kicked, you know, stepped on in the chest. Oh. That one's pretty bad. But a lot of the worst ones would be like concussions. Those are the ones that'll stick with you. You know, those bones will heal, but the concussions will kind of, you know, that CTE, that's something that's not measured in rodeo.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You get some guys that all of a sudden start getting knocked out. Just they can think about getting jerked down, and it might knock them out.
Yeah, that gets sketchy, right?
Yeah.
When their chin goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like fighters. You get knocked out too many times, and you get knocked out really easily. It's very spooky to see. When I see it in fighters, it makes me very concerned. Like sometimes you got a guy who's just maybe had just too many fights, and they used to be real durable, and then you see him get dinged once, and you see like instantly the legs go, and you're like, oh my God, he barely got touched. Yep. And he got rocked.
Yeah, and there's just, I'm sure with fighters too, there's just this, once that sport grabs a hold of your soul, it's so hard to let it go.
And it's the most exciting moments of your life is winning and competing. And that high is so high that regular life seems like a dull gray. Yes. And I think it's very hard for them. And it's also hard for them because their identity gets wrapped up in being a fighter. A lot of my friends that have retired, they really struggle like trying to figure out who they are afterwards, and then they entertain one more fight, and it's like, but they don't really want to fight. They just want something that makes them excited again.
Yes, sir. And
the Joe Rogan experience.
I'm drawing a blank on the term, but what is it called when your body sets its time for the day from the sun and
circadian rhythm?
Yeah, circadian rhythm. Yeah. It's supposed to be great for that. So it benefits your sleep a lot, right? To get sunlight early in the morning.
Yeah, supposedly.
It sets your body's clock, your mind's clock.
I've never had a problem with sleep.
Yeah, me neither.
Luckily. I'm just one of those guys.
I suck. Yeah, I have friends that really struggle with sleep.
My wife struggles with sleep. Yeah. I can go to sleep on a fucking train station floor.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. And I'm not super empathetic about it too, because sometimes like my wife will be up like doing something in the middle of the night, and she's like, she can't sleep. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, go back to sleep. She's like, don't you think I want to?
Yeah. Some people just can't sleep.
Yeah.
Well, Jocko only sleeps like 4 hours a night.
Dude, that's not good for you.
He says he doesn't need any more.
Yeah, but
I
his
don't
brain
know.
does.
I don't know.
Maybe
know.
not like for functioning right now, but like long term.
Yeah.
Like you ask Andrew Huberman, and that's one of the things you could do to like help your brain function as long as possible. And like with Alzheimer's and all kinds
Yeah.
of brain issues, like long term, sleep is a major factor.
Yeah, it's a major factor if they look at the correlation between like the amount of hours you sleep and the instances of Alzheimer's. There seems to be some sort of a connection.
Huge.
Yeah, I don't know. Jocko's a different kind of animal, though. Maybe,
He's definitely seems built different.
yeah, maybe he just doesn't need it. I think there's certain people. I think Arnold is one of those people too. Schwarzenegger. I think he said he only sleeps a few hours a night.
Yeah.
I think there's certain people that just like they have just different requirements. There are people that like physically don't need as much sleep. Like everybody needs some sleep, but I think there are people. I'm not one of them. I can notice the difference between 6 and 8 hours. I know it's a big difference. 6 hours, I'm like, oh, I got to push. There's an extra push. Whereas 8 hours, good to go.
Yeah.
You know?
I sleep 6 or 7 hours a night. But I feel like everybody's different. Like there must be outliers to only sleep 4 hours a night and function well. It must not affect your hormones as much as most people. Because like I feel like most people, if you sleep 4 hours a night, it's terrible for your hormones.
It really
causes like
depends.
a crazy crash in your hormones.
I think it really depends on what you're doing. Like for some people, like if you're only sleeping 4 hours, but your job is very engaging and very intense and there's a lot of adrenaline, you're fired up, like at the end of that day, you're probably going to crash hard, but you might be able to pull it off and keep going. But if you have like some fucking paperwork job and you only slept like 4 hours, you're going to be yawning and falling asleep. You're going to be barely able to get through it.
Or even this job, there's like the brain function aspect. You know,
Oh, here it is.
Huge.
After 10 years search, scientists find second short sleep gene. After a decade of searching, UC San Francisco scientists who identified the only human gene known to produce natural short sleep, lifelong nightly sleep that lasts just 4 to 6 hours yet leaves individuals feeling fully rested, have discovered a second. It says, before we identified the first short sleep gene, people really really weren't thinking about sleep duration in genetic terms, said Ying-Hu Fu, PhD, professor of neurology and member of the UCSF Wheel Institute for Neurosciences. Fu led the research teams that discovered both short sleep genes, the newest of which is described in a paper published August 28, 2019, in the Journal of Neuron. According to Fu, many scientists once thought that certain sleep behaviors couldn't be studied genetically. Sleep can be difficult to study using the tools of human genetics because people use alarms, coffee, and pills to alter their natural sleep cycles, she said. These sleep disruptions, the thinking went, made it difficult for researchers to distinguish between people who naturally sleep for less than 6 hours and those who do so only with the aid of an artificial stimulant. And natural short sleepers remained a mystery until 2009, when a study conducted by Fu's team discovered that people who had inherited a particular mutation in a gene called DEC2 averaged only 6.25 hours of sleep per night. Study participants lacking the mutation averaged 8.06 hours. The finding provided the first conclusive evidence that natural short sleep is, at least in some cases, genetic. But this mutation is rare, so while it helped explain some natural short sleepers, it couldn't account for all of them. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.